Okay, Alex, it's time to get going on your 6138. So let's get this process rolling here. I'm gonna get you opened up. Start our teardown process. All right. Okie dokie. All right, let's see what we got. So I usually start by removing some of the internal components that are part of the winding process and the some of the other pieces here. Yeah, you can see you've got some slight pitting. This isn't anything functionally wrong, it's just more a cosmetic thing. Looks pretty stiff. That's good. Okay. Your ball bearing framework here. These two screws are specific to this part of the movement. They don't interchange, so we got to be careful and put those in a special spot so we know where they are. There are other screws that have the same exact shape associated with your pallet fork bridge that are not the same thread pitch, so they can really screw things up if you mix them up. All right, quite a bit of lubricant here. And some real scratching. Perhaps somebody was trying to remove something, I'm not sure what. Again, more cosmetic than actual functional issue, but things to point out. I always like to point out, you know, what I'm seeing so that it's clear what's going on with the watch, you know, that you can see it. Interestingly, this cap jewel is, I think, upside down. It has a rounded side and a flat side, and I am seeing the reflective flat side, not the rounded side here. So whoever installed this did it incorrectly. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence in our previous jeweler. Yep, upside down. That's unfortunate. Not sure. Huh. Very interesting. Go ahead and take your... I wonder what the other side is like. Huh! Interesting. How strange. You only have one way they go in. I mean, one way to be in proper, of course. Alright. So there's that. Let's get your spring retrieved. Put that in here. Not that that needs to be washed, but putting it in the wash bucket means that everybody stays together. And your hairspring looks pretty good at first glance. We'll take a closer look and see how flat it is. Alright, let's get your ring. Big, thick, heavy-duty ring. Weighs as much as some watches. And your pushers here with their very stiff seals. They're pretty straight. That's always a good sign. It's not bad. That one too has its spring and looks pretty good. Of course, these seals are rock hard. And they're pretty stiff and not quite right. Okay. Alright, that's not so bad, but it is stiffer than it should be. Put that over here. Okay, so now we can reveal your dial in hands. Oh, excuse my sniffles. Okay. Well, your hands have been painted and relumed. I look at the loom and it doesn't look terrible. I certainly weren't very careful. I'll have to check back in and see what you want to have done. But the dial doesn't look bad. The hands could have a little touch-up overall, here. But we'll take a close look, make sure we get it the way you want it. Let's get everybody lined up. Okay. So interesting, these movements relative to the other 6138s, the non-bullheads, they're just rotated by 90 degrees, and then the dial feet are put on in a different position, of course, with respect to the dial. It's kind of cool. All right, let's get a place for your hands. Okay. Yeah, not the prettiest loom. Okay, well let's get your Subregister Hands. Take the hour recording and the minute recording. Make sure we don't lose that. Come with me, little hand. Okay. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So now we can look at your dial. Now we can see what the dial has to share. What will it say? Sometime in 76? Perhaps? Yes, April 76. And your case back is 8/76. So about 4 months apart, which, in the grand scheme is a little bit different than perhaps the two-month expected window. But you know what? It's pretty close. It's good. I would call that fair. Fair enough. All right. Oh, I wanted to look. We're not there yet. I want to look at that cap jewel on your other die shock to see what kind of thing we were dealing with there. All right, so everybody's looking pretty good, pretty clean, not a lot of corrosion. These things can corrode badly, as can these. So everybody's pretty much the way I'd like to see it. Let's refocus here on your movement. Okay. Pardon me again for the sniffle. Yeah, bushing looks okay. It's got a little bit of pushing on there, but that's not to be concerned about. It's just one of those things. As this gets reset, it's a pretty hard hammer blow. It pushes on this heart and resets that, and then this gets a lateral torque, which, you know, pushes it into its bushing pretty hard if it's been a set of hard resets over its lifetime, which is not unexpected. I mean, people just wore and used these things and pushed the button to reset it wherever they could and whenever they wanted, and that's what it was. It doesn't really affect it terribly, but you do want to make sure that bushing is not completely dead. Blown out would be very bad. Okay, so let's open these guys. Here we go. Lever 1. Lever 2. Here's your column wheel. And it's bushing. Okay, now you have a little cover plate here. We remove. There are your jewels for your third wheel and your escape wheel. These are the two screws that I was referring to that look a lot like the ones on the top of the movement, but have a different pitch. And these are very common amongst all Seikos, in fact. But they are different than the ones in the chronograph bridge, which is a shame because they can interchange so easily. Alright, I'm going to take a close look. I've had a rash of bad pallet forks recently, and it's sort of annoying. But yours looks pretty good, nice and shiny. Good reflections off the jewels. Make sure that's nice and clean. Okay, so next up is your ratchet wheel and your click spring. There we go. And you. Alright, not so much crud around here, that's good to see. Sometimes they've lost so much of their internal lubrication that it's sort of slips between the arbor and the cap, and you get lots and lots of material buildup. This has perhaps been a part, perhaps the mainspring has been a part. We shall see. Okay. We will hand clean this bridge. Get the jewels nice and clean. There's your all-important hand winding intermediate wheel. Now for the goodies. Alright. And there's your super important chronograph wheel, which has good resistance. We will check it with our tool. Make sure it's in good shape. Third wheel, escape wheel, and your barrel. It's in good shape. It's got a little spring that is just a friction resistance kind of situation. And operates your hour recording wheel, in fact, off of your mainspring barrel. It's geared in such a way to give you an hour counter. Ooh. What in the world? Why is that so? I have to take a very close look at that. We may be replacing this. It actually looks cracked. Ooh. I'm not sure about this part. Looks like somebody took a drill and drilled some of that out. I think this may need to be replaced, just for safety's sake. Just for the sake of, geez, certainty. I may replace that. Okay, let's flip to the calendar. English Roman wheel, which is very cool. I like that. Let's go ahead and take your C-clip, which is the right way down or up, or however you want to explain it. It's in the correct position. There we go. I'll go in this little house. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There your plate. Lots of oil around. It's interesting. Your date ring. Jumper. Day corrector fingers. Ooh, there we go. Everybody came out at once. Millennium Falcon. Okay. Alright, so now, again, 3 6-1-3-8 specific screws that hold this plate. There's sort of a different finish on the head and slightly longer than the other bridge screws. Serve this one purpose here. They have a sort of slight dome to their head and a brushed finish. This is how you tell them apart from the others, which have a shiny finish. Okay, off comes your plate. There's not really too much to this one other than that perfectly awesome jewel right there, which is part of your mainspring arbor port jewelling. So now it's just a matter of tearing down the keyless works and the hour recording components. Now, interestingly, this screw here, which is an eccentric, should be pointing with its center line toward that hole, so they're lined up with its maximum eccentricity this way. I don't know why it was turned the other way, but we'll check it and we'll test it and make sure that it's right before we put things back together, of course. One more spring here. And then your reset levers. It's nice to see these are not rusty, which is good. There's another reset lever. And now your stop levers actuators. Okay. Our wheel. Cannon pinion, your center wheel. Take a good look at your center wheel here, make sure it's not rusty, which is nice. Not that I was expecting it, but it's good to see. Okay. That in there. Now, that die shock is in the right orientation, whereas the other one, definitely not. Whoop, come back here. You go in there. There's your die shock. Okay, now just the keyless works, and then we're done. With the teardown at least, and then we gotta clean. Clean and refresh. And one more. Your intermediate wheel. And there's that. And that. And your B2 bomber. And your yoke. Setting lever. And there is the rest. All done. Okay. Well, that's the teardown. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to replace this part. That's pretty much toast. So, there we go. We'll check your jewels, make sure they're nice and clean, and then we'll put it in the wash, and we'll be ready to roll. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, Alex, we are ready for reassembly. We've got everything out of the cleaner. We've got all your parts and components that need to be pre-lubricated, ready to go. So the first thing we do is we build out the calendar side, but the components that lie beneath calendar plate, so that we can center your barrel arbor. So it's a bit of a complex thing, but not too bad. So we start here. We're going to build out your keyless works, which is the first step. So that requires some lubrication, of course, as everything else does as well. Got some grease here between your pinion. Okay. Okay, now oops. Sorry for the barking. George is doing his thing. Okay, there we go. spinning lever here. Again, sorry for all the barking. Okay, start lubricating some of these pivot points here. Never quiet. Never quiet. Okay. Let's get your yoke. B-2 bomber. Okay, good. Go. Okay, now grab your lever. Everybody should be flat. That's good. Sorry for all the dog noise. Martha has to make her presence known. Good. Okay. Okay, keyless works are in. Let's go ahead and put some other ancillary parts in place. You gotta put your, let's go ahead and get the come on. Come on. Get your cannon pinion in place. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to build out the components of the 12-hour wheel for your chronograph. I should say the hour recording wheel. So here's your stop lever. This arrests the actual wheel itself, and it's compressed by this spring. There we go. Come on, spring. Do your thing, spring. Oops. Come on. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and put your hammer on. Lever. There we go. And now the spring that holds everybody together. Oh, come on. Orient. These don't like to be in the right orientation. They fall and fall oddly. There we go. And there we have it. Okay, so that's everything here except for... Okay. And there we have it. And that is how we do that. Good. Now we'll have to watch this wheel as we get moving. So you have to make sure that when the chronograph is disengaged, it doesn't turn, and when the chronograph is engaged, it does. And you know, it's a this pivot off-center eccentric pin here should not really be out of an adjustment position, and it was, which is a bit weird, but you know, not unexpected sometimes when people are trying to just put it in the position that does the right thing for them. Sometimes they ignore the instructions, which are to keep it in this position that it's in now. So we'll have to see. Sometimes they need a tweak, but not usually. Okay, that's nice and flat. Everybody looks good. And there we have it. Now we can put your screws in. All right, so now let's check how everybody's functioning. That's exactly what we want. Also what we want. That's perfect. We'll check the operation of your hammer. There we go. That's good. Okay, great. Great, great, great. All right, so now we can flip over and build out your movement, basically the rest of the parts. And as you can see, we can now place your barrel into its jewel properly so it's seated. It's just the way I like to do this. So let's check your gear one more time, make sure it's nice and freewheeling. That can also lead to an issue if that gets stuck. Okay, here's your new plate. This is the what's called the center wheel cock, which is a component that holds down your center wheel and locates the rest of the components for the train of wheels. Yours was badly damaged by a screw head, I think, an incorrect screw head perhaps. So you now have a new one. And yours will come back. All right. Get your wheels in place here. I always give them a final look-see to make sure there's nothing there that can interfere with the movement of the train. No hairs or fuzz or just random bits of stuff that could potentially get on them. You know, we're talking pieces of detritus that are, you know, of the order of microns, and that can actually interrupt the motion of the works. anything like that. Tiny little patch of fuzz. You know, we're not working a class, you know, 1000 clean room. Not even close. So all right, let's go ahead and lubricate your intermediary wheel here. There we go. That's where your winding intermediary gear goes. There that is. We definitely need that, or you can't wind the watch, turns out. Okay, one check here. Make sure everybody's clean. You can drop your bridge. Okay. Make sure all the pivots are... Wow, that one really wanted to go together. That's great. That's what we want to see. Nice and flat. Perfect. Perfect. First try. It's nice. Come on. Alright, fantastic. Let's go ahead and lubricate your jewels that need to be lubricated. So your third wheel here, and your escape wheel. Okay, and let's put a small drop right here. And clean up our excess a little bit. Oh my goodness. This Rotico is so sticky. Good. Alright, so now we can put your click on. Good. And your ratchet wheel. Excellent. Okay. So now we can build out the components of your chronograph. So levers. drop of oil in here. Right. This lever has to be back like so. Come on. Correct position, please. There we go. Okay. If that's not right, we've got problems. We're gonna put your plate over your jewels. There we go. Okay, now it's time for your levers. There we go. That's one. And now number two. Okay. Let's go ahead and get your bushing installed. And we'll lubricate your column wheel. Get that into place. Okay. Now all the screws. There's one. There's two. There's three. Okay, now we can install your spring, which holds your levers out. Make sure they're in the out position. There we go. We're going to actually lubricate a little bit inside of here, just between this high friction point. There's your spring. Excelente. Let's clear out some of this excess. Good. Now, your hammer. The hammer. Let's drop the hammer. Well, let's not drop it, but let's install it. Whoa! Come back. Runaway hammer. Okay. Hammer spring. Perfect. All right, now your jeweled minute recording wheel, which seems to have a bit of detritus on it. Is it okay? I think it's okay. Is it? Yes. Okay. There we go. All right, intermediate wheel. Does not get any lubricant. This one should be dry installed. There we go. All right, now your chronograph bridge. We're gonna lubricate, as always. Here, this gets some heavy-duty grease due to the nature of this post here. It gets a lot of friction, a lot of force. It's part of the reset lever. Okay, let's hold this down. Oh, you screw. You always do that to me. I can never get away with that screw not falling in there. First time. Always. Now it's out. Okay. Here we go. Screw number 2. Make sure this one's right. There we go. Okay. There we have it. There we have it. Looking good. Okay, this side of the train is lubricated. Let's go ahead and lubricate your 2 upper pivots here, one in this jewel, one in this bushing. Should be good. Now we're going to flip over and lubricate this side. Okay. Okay. Very nice. The train is running perfectly. Everything looks the right kind of clearance, etc. So next up is your pallet fork, which is part of your lever escapement. Let's let that wind down. There we go. All right. snaps into place. All right. Perfect. That's what we want to see. The lever escapement, or the pallet fork, is also installed dry on these, and if you do get lubrication on that jewel, it can really mess up the running of the watch. Okay, so now it's time for the moment of truth. The moment, the dropping of the balance. Haha, look at that. It's a runner. Well, it was a runner beforehand, but now it's a runner that we have constructed. Right. That's one screw. And two. Right, now it's time to put the die shock. Stabilize your balance. And your die shock spring. There it goes. Excellent. And away we go. All right, there we are. We're running. All right, let's check and see how we did. Let's let this break in just a bit, and we will have a look on the time grapher. Right back. Okay, so we're going to have to do a little bit of extra work on your hairspring. It is, it's not in plane, so usually your hairspring is this and this and this and this. It compresses in and out as a spring. Yours is doing this, and so that means that it is not in plane, and as it compresses it lopes, and so that puts a gallop in your signal, and we're gonna have to try and mitigate that and take care of it. It's not an easy process, but we'll do our best, so we'll come back with more about that. Okay, Alex, well, a quick update. Couple things. One is, here's your dial and your hands. So the dial was straightforward. It had some cruddy loom, it wasn't really of high quality. So this is good Bergeon white loom that looks a lot like the original Seiko, and I think it came out very well. I got your dial cleaned up a little bit. There was some material that had dribbled over from the sides of the loom job that had been done, and I was able to clear that off. So I think it came out fantastic. I also stripped your hands. What's interesting about this style of hand is that what's underneath, the actual black part that you see from the sort of, the baton back to the mount point, that's actually anodized. And so that means it's really tough stuff that, stays on, and you can scratch it. It does scratch off. But overall, the anodization underneath the paint that was on there was quite good. So what I did was I stripped it off, cleaned the surface, and I went ahead and repainted the white, and then went ahead and loomed with the same loom that I used here. And I think that came out really nice. We'll see what the final product looks like, but I think overall, that's nice. The one thing I did want to talk about, with a slight warning, is that your case itself is pretty badly damaged on the sealing surfaces. So this is the product of rust, and everybody thinks that stainless steel is immune to rust, but it turns out it's not. So these sealing surfaces are where your case back gasket goes, and these are pits. These are pits that are in that surface and may, you know, it's always a bit of a crapshoot, in particular these here, this may lead to moisture ingress. Now, the way to mitigate that is, of course, not to get the watch wet. Whether or not it's going to be particularly good at sealing against atmospheric moisture, really, you know, the idea is that you have a sealed watch, and the relative humidity of the room that we're creating this watch in will be the relative humidity inside the watch if it stays sealed. But if that's something that changes, you know, if you're outside and it's a cold, damp day, and you go back inside and it warms up, or vice versa, you may get moisture on your watch. And the sealing surfaces on this side are the same. So you also have a sealing surface here. This is of your bezel, so it's not is not as important, but you do have some pitting here where your Viton gasket would go. So be extremely careful. We're going to do our best, of course, to get everything sealed the right way. I also got your new ring installed, so that's going to go on at the last minute so we can make sure it's nice and aligned, because that's a hard fit. And so that came out really well. Okay, so overall, we're ready to reassemble, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, Alex, we are right here at the end. We're going to put the final components on and get you buttoned up and back together. Get your winding framework installed. Okay. Now for your weight. And the final screw. And that is that. New case back seal. And again, very, very careful with this watch near water. You have some pitting even on your case back on the sealing surface. It's pitted fairly badly, so please be careful around any moisture. Okay, and with that, there you are. Your lovely 6138 Bullhead. Just a really, really great looking watch. I think it came out spectacularly well. All right. Oops. Let me get the sound a little bit better. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's review. Overall, you know, this was a watch that posed a few challenges. It is a watch that had seen a life. You know, you get some of these watches that have been on eBay or you know, some of the sites that you can buy them from, and they come polished like this and some parts replaced. You got to be a little bit careful, you know, with the way you proceed. And this watch, you know, it's a beautiful example now that we've done this work, and I think that having it serviced and making sure it was fresh was the right choice. because what I was able to do was find a few things that really needed addressing, and one of them was your balance and your hairspring. They were out of true, and so I had to take those apart and get those right. You also actually had a bad, I'll just go through the parts here. You had a bad pallet fork. I had to replace that. So that has now been replaced and is a new one. I'll show you all the things that we went through on your watch and replaced or worked on. Not quite that far. Okay. So there's your crystal. And you also had a bad bridge. So this, whoops. Oh my goodness, I'm just throwing everything. Excuse me. All right, so this is your, this is the cock that holds your center wheel. And you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some really bad wear inside of that hole right there. That was no good. So that had to go. We've replaced that. Old seals. Let's get your pallet fork. There's your pallet fork. This little number right here, boy, that can really alter the running of your watch. Turns out that yours had some bad stones, those purple stones there. They are critical to getting the amplitude to where it should be. So that one's coming back to you. Otherwise, you know, it was a straightforward service. You had a little bit of extra time in making sure those parts were right and taken care of. I had to true your hairspring. But, you know, in general, it's just a lovely, lovely bullhead. And we've reloomed. I repainted your hands. So I think you're not your counting hands or your sweep hand, but your minute and hour hands of the watch itself. You know, functionally everything is, oops, it's this side on the bullheads. Functionally everything is just right. Hand alignment is very good. Your day and date, you know, turn over perfectly. So there we go. Now we're back again. We can also do the quick set. That's one click out. Of course, with these. One way for the day, the other way for the date. Let's leave that on Sunday. Today is the, what is today? Today's the 3rd. Let's set that properly. Red 3. Alright, you got hand winding, which works perfectly here. So, overall, really great watch. Looking much better. We replaced your bezel insert. Here's your old one. That'll come back to you, of course. Here. Right. Okay. I also, so on these aftermarket bracelets, so this is not an original, this is from the aftermarket. They are way too tight. So I actually went in with a jeweler's file and filed this to fit properly. The only issue that you still have with these, and it's always going to be the case for these, is that this space here is a little too proud, this sharp edge, and so that leaves some slight binding as this will go. But I'm not going to take anything off of this edge. I will leave that, you know, as it is, just because it is the way the watch is. I mean, that's the way these bands are. But you know, I think you've got a great example. Everything is working exactly as it should. You should see the, let's move that out of the way. You should see the chronograph click over here. Perfect. Then we can do a reset. So my recommendation on resetting is that run the chronograph all you like. In fact, running it is a better state for the watch to be in. Surprisingly, for these Seikos, running is a good place. However, what I always tell people with chronographs is that if you're going to reset the watch, if you're going to set it back to everybody vertical, do that between 11 and 1. You know, run it all you want, stop it where you want it, but then restart it and let it find its way back close to midnight, back close to here. Where it is right now is an ideal spot. And also, never reset it somewhere where the chronograph hand is to one side or the other of the minute hand. So in a sense, if it were like this, for example, and the minute hand were here, and you wanted to reset the chronograph back to 0, I'm just doing this as an example, it could potentially, on a hard reset, find its way into bashing into your hand, and that's not unheard of on either side. So if it's before 6 and you reset it in this position, it's going to potentially interact with your hand, and if it's after 6 and your minute hand is in this position, it could potentially interact with your minute hand. So you got to be a little bit careful with your resets. But from here, it's perfect. You just set it right back, and back it goes. All right, well, Alex, thank you so much for sending me this beautiful watch. I really appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun working on it. I will be in touch, and we will get this back to you. All right, thanks a lot.